All right, you are listening to Transparency and Merit. I'm Joe. I'm here with Brian, and we're doing a show called George Zimmerman vs. O.J. Simpson. Why did we call it this, Brian?
You know what, Joe? I thought of this idea because I just want to say, what is the difference between the two, O.J. Simpson, or George Zimmerman and O.J. Simpson? I can think of a few off the top of my head, but one was more outraged over the other, although I think a lot of people were outraged over both. One was a little bit more outraged than the other, but I gotta say that, there certainly is a difference. I mean, there are certainly people who kind of believe that O.J. Simpson did it, but they really don't care. And those that believe that he did it but don't care, very much care that George Zimmerman did what he did.
I've got to let my opinion shine through here too, because there is a small, I will grant you it's a small group, but it is a growing group. And it is a group of people who think that this is nothing more than a construct, that George Zimmerman is an actor, Trayvon was an actor, none of this happened. What do you say to those people? How do you defend this in reality? And why do you think that it has an impact on people in reality?
It has an impact on people in reality because the mainstream media, and I call the civil rights industrial complex,
which very well could be. I'm a believer in this concept of, as you call it, the civil rights industrial complex. I think that so much has come from the civil rights acts from way back when, and the impacts are very real now. So is this your foundation? Is this where you draw your line in the sand?
My basic line in the sand is there are people that are made to believe this stuff who actually believe that it's unsafe. Like with regards to George Zimmerman and him getting off, and now he's suing both the family and I think different media outlets, and different media outlets did push the civil rights industrial complex's narrative quite a bit. And I don't know if that is illegal to do, because you did basically, you upplayed one. I mean, you basically, the way you portrayed George Zimmerman in the news, and like the two pictures, one picture of George Zimmerman, the other picture of Trayvon is a much younger child, and kind of trying to keep his past and other things out of it.
Right, innocent young guy.
There has been a growing number of people that are activist journalists that are basically out there today pushing a certain narrative, and it's not just the civil rights industrial I mean, there's a lot of social. I believe that there's a lot of activist journalists and social justice warriors that are kind of that are ingrained in our mainstream media and mainstream news today that are pushing the outrage mob.
I think we're going to find a meeting ground on this at some point, because I think this is so far fetched and so far out of reality's realm that I need convincing that how is this on the street level? How is this impacting people? And there is real outrage over this because a lot of people buy in to the media, and that that's a whole nother conversation. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of shows that aggressively push the envelope and cross that line in the sand and go after the media for what it really is, and where it's impacting society the most these days. I feel that that's where Transparency and Merit is really going to make its mark. When it comes to a story like this, I just have a tough time buying in and getting. I don't feel the outrage that you feel.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I really. Well, most of my outrage comes from the fact that we're not allowed to debate this publicly, because these people are coming from a very emotional state, mm-hmm. And you know what? You go to court. When you go to court, first of all, you're not going to a court of justice. You're going to a court of law. And there are reasons why laws are the way they are. And the fact that we have this kind of mobocracy mentality within the civil rights strain of people, it's just kind of a sad kind of thing that's really kind of polarized people. And the fact that we're not talking to one another, we're just, it's kind of a... Because the left, in my opinion, the left does get away with things that the right could never get away with. They're able to basically say things that if the right said the same thing, they would basically be what is called canceled within our society. So, and I just put the contrast between O.J. Simpson and Trayvon, I mean, not Trayvon Martin, but O.J. Simpson and George Zimmerman, because I don't think that there was the same kind of outrage. And, because Black Lives Matter basically started because of Trayvon, because of the George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin case. It basically started out of that. And there was no organization that started out of the O.J. Simpson to battle against the perverse civil rights, the civil rights industrial complex, because, to me it was white guilt and black and brown racial vendetta that caused the case of O.J. Simpson.
Right.
And you saw how the country is still as polarized as it's ever been.
And plus we happen to live in Los Angeles, and I was at work and saw I worked on Sunset Strip in Hollywood the day of that event, and O.J. Simpson and Al Cowling drove right past my work that day. I'll never forget that in the Bronco. So, yeah, it was very real to us.
I can never forget the O.J. Simpson verdict. It really upset me. And, then because I remember one of our biggest shows that we had on Blog Talk was the George Zimmerman case. And it went, that show went through the roof. But now, like I said, I believe because at some point the social justice warriors and the civil rights industrial complex was really losing ground. And then they just, because basically the civil rights industrial complex had already metastasized itself in all forms of society, both the public, the private sector, and they basically controlled the media, and they controlled the narrative. And then when alternative media came up and cropped up, here come these individuals who are saying things that say, wait a minute, what they're telling you is untrue, or have you ever thought of it from this perspective? And that's when the civil rights industrial complex said, hey, we got to take this back. We got to take this away. We have to take this medium away because it's gaining too much ground, and we don't want to debate. And now now anything that's controversial, they don't even touch. They're more into lecturing, and unfortunately, it seems like today we have far less freedom of speech than more. And we have, in this, I've said this before, we have in this age, this information age, we've gotten more censorship in this information age because people think that that there's information out there that we as adults or even as children don't need to hear. And I think they're treating us like children, that like all of a sudden we may do something. We can't be trusted to hear information. So we need these adult overlords to basically decide what we're going to hear and what we're not. And that's basically what has been done, in my opinion. And I'm surprised nobody's really gone out and just challenged these people. I mean, the ADL, it really made me angry. The ADL stifled information, and I'll get into that on a later show. But they constantly give out information that they want you to hear, and then they stifle the rest, and they basically censor anyone that goes against the civil rights industrial complex, citing hate speech. But you can see that the left can say whatever they want, but the right has to be on its P's and Q's and has to watch what it says. And that's about all I have. I mean, and that is basically the crux of it for me.
We know people are going to listen to this, so if you do, make sure you leave a comment, like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and make sure you join us for more transparency and merit. Is there any last words you have before we go?
You know what? My last word is, look, we're not children. We're all adults, and we should be able to have discussions. We should have discussions that adults have. And if we can't do that, then we're on the same level of children.
Yeah, in many ways, we are adults that are still wearing diapers in many, many reasons, and I can't wait to tackle some of the other areas that transparency and merit will go. Hey, Nick, what's going on? Thanks for listening. But yeah, we have so many topics, so many places. I'm with you 100% when it comes to censorship. It's brutal. And right now it is, it seems like YouTube is prepared for another censorship peak as we go through December here in 2019. And there's more on the way. And there's a lot of disgruntled YouTubers. And there's just a lot of disgruntled people on the internet who can't engage with, I can't tell you, man, how many videos or stories I've seen recently where I am just denied access, denied the ability to get in there and have the conversations I want to have with them because they've turned off the chat features. They've turned off the ability to have the discussion. They've closed it, they've censored it, and they've shut a lot of people out that way.
They want to treat us like children, and
they do.
That's just and
not fair. But join us again. Okay, we are done. Thank you again. And I think that's it, right?
That's it.
That's it. Later, Willie.